Rick and Morty comic issue 20. Oh boy, the art's bad. Well, actually, they do explain that they're in another dimension. Dimension 437. But apparently the thing with this dimension isn't that it makes the characters look terrible, because they're terrible when they get back home. But instead, it's that the local fauna can't mind their own business. That would be the case with every dimension. They're holding what look like death crystals from Season 4, but apparently they're just blurgdite. And Rick says that at this rate they'll have to take multiple trips to get all of it they need. He probably uses blurgdite for making inventions and likes to get it for free, and that should always be why he's trying to get hands on stuff. Because it makes more sense than him trying to make money off it, when it's a portal gun to steal money from banks and mansions. Morty says in a not so subtle way of manipulating him that if he was stronger or faster, he could be more helpful. Why did it take him so long to think of saying this to a do-anything scientist? He asked Rick to juice him up and make him real big. Rick says that's not really his thing to mess with his grandson's body, except he literally did exactly that in the previous issue. He made him toxic. Maybe he only did that because he had to. But he didn't have to, because he could have grabbed any random person and done that to them instead of Morty. He could have done it to a clone of Morty. Then after Morty is told that he does ask him for things in a sarcastic rebuttal, we cut to them being fish underwater, and he says this was a dumb idea. Rick makes me giggle, saying sarcastically, "Oh gosh, what's that, Morty? Being a fish is dumb?" That's pretty shocking, Morty. How did they expect? I guess they had a transform back remote control right next to them just in case they needed to turn back. Morty at least explains that the reason he wanted to do that was because being a fish seemed cool and sword in the stone. Why? Oh, it wasn't a flash forward where Rick somehow screwed up making Morty muscular big time. And instead it was a flashback showing that Morty does ask for things. And he has every reason to ask for things. If anything, morally, Rick should be doing stuff for him to make up for the way he treats him. But that's not who he is. Morty says that this idea would benefit both of them. And Morty gets given an Enelda egg conveniently right there, which would make him muscular. He's impressed with Morty's bravery when he just drinks it right up, and it turns out him becoming stronger so fast was incredibly painful and looked terrible. Then we cut to Morty's principal saying that with the mysterious disappearance of Coach Ferratu, like in the show, he'll be the coach, even though he himself admits that he's underqualified. So, how? At least he was self-aware. He admits that he knows as much about basketball as he does about maintaining a healthy marriage, saying, "So we're all pretty much screwed." That made me smile. He then says that Morty's trying out for basketball, and he throws one into the basket from afar, and Jessica's more scared at seeing him than anything. Never mind, she's impressed afterwards. It's so amusing to see Morty's head on a muscular body, and to see him still talking in his typical lame way. And that was the whole joke, I guess. I kinda giggled at seeing this. He also says that he's plain old Morty and there's nothing weird or new about him at all. And I don't know why I expected anyone to buy that. At least Jessica's boyfriend asks how he got so big. I guess he doesn't know Rick. And neither does the coach in this universe, apparently, since he doesn't immediately assume it's the work of Rick. He just assumes he turned buff overnight because of puberty. That's not funny, that's stupid. Then he asks what Morty did, having low expectations. He's told that Morty made the basketball team, and Rick's upset with him for becoming a jock. I guess he's too selfish to think about other people to realize that he was inevitably going to do this with his new strength when he's regularly going to high school. What do you expect? Rick says jealously that he had created sustainable energy from a drop of water, but there's no slow motion replay for that. A single drop of water? Not even rainfall? Bullshit. He really is a wizard, isn't he? That reminded me of Tails' claim that he could make a computer out of dishwater in Sonic Lost World. Anyways, he says there's no parades for real achievement, which is a good point. He should go on to say that sports are just games. That would make his point a bit better. And Beth tells Rick to lay off and says that this is the only way Morty's going to get into college and get a successful enough career that he's never going to be a burden on anyone. I think she has too low faith in him, though. I see both sides of the situation here. Morty's not being himself, and so Rick preferred him the way he was. And they just want to take advantage of it. Jerry gets self-conscious, assuming that Beth was saying he's a burden because he doesn't have a job. And when Morty says he can't go get anything for him because he's got practice, he's furious and says that he thinks he's too good for him now. Well, that's clearly not what he meant, and he was just being a slave to the rules. Clearly Morty doesn't need practice. But I don't know, maybe he's forced to practice or else he won't be allowed to play any games. But I can see why Rick would have been always worried that Morty would realize he was too good for Rick, since his adventures with him are so stressful. He's lucky he went on that mission with him at all after he turned him into a toxic person. I have to wonder why he calls Morty ungrateful. Oh right, because he helped him get muscular this one time. Beth lampshades that Morty's future is important and he needs to take a break from his adventures. Rick feels betrayed by his own daughter, and Jerry says they should have seen this coming because he and Beth always tried to tell him that Morty's school was more important than his adventures. Then there's mundane padding. Although it was at least amusing to see the text box saying, "Cue popular rap song that we couldn't clear the rights for" to accompany the montage. Then a construction magnate, whose ads are on the bus stops, says to Jerry that they've got a chance at state with Morty on the team, and he wants Jerry to join all the other dads at the country club for drinks before the game, even though he doesn't have a membership. Jerry's happy to learn that his favorite movie is Titanic, and we briefly see Rick unhappily watching a hologram of some of his old adventures with Morty while drinking in between the padding montage of Morty, who somehow didn't get benched or anything for throwing a basketball at someone's head. But yeah, it's good to see that Rick really does care about Morty enough to personally miss him. It's not just that he's using him for his brainwaves camouflaging him from the Galactic Federation. I guess being able to show him camera footage of an adventure of his with Morty was a function of the blurb that he got, or else why would Rick have gone through all the trouble making camera footage of one of his adventures himself? I guess a flying drone camera would be able to keep up with them and make that footage. And he made specifically to watch at times when he missed Morty. He's that prepared. Or worst case scenario, he makes that footage so that he'll know if something's Morty's fault. Then he could show it to him. Then the guy that Jerry made a connection with wants to make him the head of his marketing department because they're friends, with Jerry appreciating it with tears in his eyes. And then the principal tells the boys that if they win the game, he'll finally have something to brag about his divorce proceedings. Considering his ridiculous last name, how did he ever get married in the first place? I guess she didn't take his last name. He tells Jesse's boyfriend, who's timidly asking for the last shot, to give it to Morty. And just before he could potentially plot against him out of jealousy, or at least quit, a giant monster bursts into the building out of nowhere. I did see something bad happening coming, because things were too good to be true for Morty and Jerry. Especially Jerry. It's nice of Jesse to call out Morty's name in concern. I guess it's also because she knows it has to be Rick's fault, and it's wondering if it's therefore Morty's fault. Maybe the alien got attracted to him because of the juice that juiced him up. Jerry's friend dies to a falling ceiling after being nice enough to warn him to stay back. But if he knew it was coming and had all those seconds to think about it, you'd think he would have just run towards him and avoided getting killed. Dumbass. Maybe he wanted it to crush him. Morty runs all the way up to Rick to warn him. I guess the reason he didn't just call him on a cell phone was because maybe Rick didn't want to feel tied down to him, so that at any moment, his peace and quiet could be interrupted by someone calling him. Rick acts like he told him that drinking that egg had a drawback. Oh, he did, but Morty drank it before he could tell him that if these aliens find whoever took their egg, they're gonna get violent against them. That doesn't explain how the alien squid got to this planet. If it followed Rick through the portal home, it would have been right behind him and been noticed immediately. That thing must have come here in a really big spaceship. Rick gets Morty to admit that he was being selfish. And sweetly, Rick immediately laughs and says he can't ever stay mad at him and he's his little pal, putting his hand on his face. He says he'll get those babies out of him, and reveals that those aren't muscles, there's little alien parasites in there. He just didn't want to spoil his fun by telling him about that earlier. Why didn't he tell him that when he was mad at him for joining the basketball team? He could have gotten his muscles out a lot earlier and avoided this. Who knows how much carnage the alien caused to the gym. It was nice of him to wait until Morty would be perfectly okay with it before deciding to get the muscles out. It was nice of Rick to put Morty under before doing this. Good thing he's prepared enough to have a needle for instant unconsciousness on hand. And it's very convenient that the alien simply leaves instead of killing Morty and Rick. Rick says an oddly kid-friendly moral of the story for the comedy value, that he hopes he learned his lesson that he can't screw over his grandpa for Jessica's sake. And he says he won't hold it against him. Aww. Morty laughs at his pun, it's uncharacteristic of Rick to make puns. Well, most of the time anyways. I know he said Rictory once, but I guess he was really trying to lighten the mood. Rick looks nervous when Morty actually asks how that alien managed to find him. I'm pleasantly surprised that the writer actually thought about this and explained it. It turns out that Rick summoned it to this planet. And he lies about it and says that family will do whatever it takes to get their family back. Even crazy stuff. Well, the art was unacceptably crude. Fortunately, the story was interesting enough to make up for it, as I was usually too busy focusing on the dialogue. Morty has to get stronger and faster to become more useful in Rick's adventures, but then it turns out he just wanted to impress Jessica, the basketball team. And since Rick later talks as if this was his only real motive all along, maybe it was. So that was pretty clever of Morty to manipulate Rick with a false motive like that. It was a mundane and boring twist though. I would have rather seen him go on at least one adventure all muscular. He got muscular because he drank the juice of an alien egg, and it turns out to put alien babies in his muscles instead of his stomach as a drawback. And Rick was so desperate to get his grandson back that he summoned the alien to the planet to get him back. Good thing the alien didn't kill him after it went through a portal that must have had him right in front of it. I guess he immediately jumped out of the way and hid, and it doesn't have a sense of smell, so it didn't find him. He had a lot of faith in his grandson. And he was right to, since naturally a huge thing would be too slow and be outrun by Morty easily. It's really convenient that I didn't kill them. That should have been explained, like with Rick making special perfume hormones to manipulate into not hurting them. It was disappointingly boring and mundane that he became a generic basketball player, and that was most of the story. But fortunately they glossed over it in quick montages. He would have simply won every match, so whatever. This had to happen to explain why he had to stop being muscular and go back to the status quo. Rick should have seen this coming. When Morty said he should be made stronger and faster for his adventures by being juiced up, I assumed he meant a temporary transformation for his adventures only. That might be something Rick could do, but I guess biology is Rick's Achilles heel when it comes to inventions, and that's why he didn't want to risk his grandson by messing with it with him, when he's a physicist and engineer, not a biology major. I guess if he could make a serum to make Morty strong for his adventures, he would have already done so from the start, and every Morty would be like that. It's a bigger stretch to believe that every single Rick is just too lazy to do this, so I'd rather believe that he's just not capable. He doesn't want to screw Morty up with actual steroids when they get him in trouble with Beth, so that has to be why. It's nice to see that realistically Rick does have some limits. That's why there's a Morty that's permanently transformed into a lizard person in like one of the episodes of the show.